Don't miss Deadline Live with Jack Blood. He doesn't just cover the news, he uncovers the news. Weekday afternoons, 3 to 5 p.m. Central, only on American...
Thousands of people gathered to hear Barack Obama deliver key foreign policy speech on his current European tour. The Democratic presidential hopeful laid out his vision for America's place in a new world order, saying he was speaking as a proud citizen of the United States and a fellow citizen of the world.
Well, thank you for joining us, folks. As I said, a happy Semiramis Day, or Columbia Day, as they call it here in the good old United States of America, this once great republic. You're listening to Deadline Live. I'm Jack Blood, your radio gun, AmericanFreedomRadio.com. Our guest here on the program today is none other than David Icke. David has been on the show countless times, and I believe this is the third Columbus Day he's joined us. He is the British author, expert, and public speaker. He's written over 16 books, traveled to over 40 countries since 1990. His research exposes the Big Brother fascist dictatorship predicted by George Orwell in his book, 1984, though I've come to realize that it is more like Brave New World. They've got to get your permission for all of this, folks. But David joins us. I'm very honored to have him, and we'll be seeing him next week in Phoenix, Arizona, actually this Saturday. David, been a while. Good to have you on the show, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, Jack.
Let's start first with this Columbia Day, this Semiramis Day that is celebrated especially in our Italian community here in the United States of America, commemorating the love, the worship of a Babylonian goddess.
Well, yeah, and I'm learning even more and more about the background to that, which I'm going to talk about in Phoenix. But certainly on that level, in Babylon, they had a trinity of Nimrod, the father god, the son of God, the virgin-born son, they called Tammuz or Ninus, and then they had Queen Semiramis, also known as Ishtar and Lilith and many other names, who was the moon goddess, if you like, figure. And they used to symbolize her as a dove. And when these bloodlines and the Babylonian church was relocated to Rome, became the Roman Church, they and the other expressions of Roman belief worshipped her as Venus Columba, Venus the dove. And what we have in French still today, the word for dove is Columba. And when you look at the District of Columbia, the University of Columbia, Columbia Broadcasting, these are all names, codes for the goddess of Babylon. Of course, the goddess of Babylon is on public display in New York Harbor, called the Statue of Liberty. When you look at the way that they depicted Queen Semiramis with the points around the head, etc., it's a mirror of the Statue of Liberty, which came from where? It came from French Freemasons in Paris, who have a replica, an exact replica, on an island in the River Seine in Paris. And the goddess of the French Republic is, again, a Semiramis lookalike. You look at the goddess of Columbia, it's a Semiramis Statue of Liberty lookalike. So these things are on public display all around us. And funnily enough, one of the ways, Jack, that they used to symbolize Queen Semiramis was as an owl. And if you just look at the road system around the Congress building, just get a street plan, or go on Google or whatever, and look at the street plan around the Congress building, Capitol Hill, and you'll see that the road system within that complex clearly, not even, is it what you think? Absolutely.
David, they showed it on Fox News.
The Capitol Hill is in his belly. So symbolic. And that's why they worship that 40-foot stone owl at Bohemian Grove every summer.
Otherwise known as Minerva. We have a 33-stone owl building, by the way, here in Austin, Texas, overlooking us. And also we have Minerva on top of our state capitol building. They were doing some kind of a piece on Freemasonry on Fox News a couple of weeks ago. We have this clip at deadlinelive.info, and they were showing the very map you were just referencing.
Yes, and, the owl symbol comes up again and again. Because it symbolizes, one level anyway, how they work in the dark, they see in the dark. Because the gods they represent or night to these entities.
Right. And we know, I just read an astounding book by Terry Melanson, I believe his name is, about 500 pages on the original Bavarian Illuminati, and that was one of their main key forms of worship, was Minerva and the owl.
Yeah, and because it's reading the codes, Jack, you see, and actually in Phoenix, I'm going to do quite a little bit on this, because I'm learning at deeper levels of the codes recently. But there are entities that are worshipped and are, if you like, masters of the Illuminati bloodlines. The Illuminati bloodlines are interbreeding because they're trying to keep a certain genetic structure, a certain DNA code, which connects them to these demonic entities. That's why they interbreed so incessantly to hold the key, to hold the code. You see, we accept that the aristocratic lines and the royal lines have always interbred because to keep the genes up and all that stuff. But these bloodlines also massively go into the people that control the corporations, the governments, the media at ownership level. So these so-called royal lines are in all these areas of the system, and it's particular DNA code they're trying to keep hold of. And they do their rituals to these demonic entities, and they symbolize them in various ways so that they're all around us. For instance, one way they symbolize them is as a hawk, and that's why you have Horus depicted in ancient Egypt as the hawk-headed god. They depicted them as, funnily enough, talking in America, they also depict them symbolically as an eagle. This is why you have the Nazi eagle. That's why you had the eagle. You have the eagle on so many flags around the world, like in Iraq. And they also symbolize them as angels. You know, the fallen angels in the Bible. That's what it's talking about. And these other texts around the world, various religions and cultures, they talk about the same thing. They're as fallen angels. So when in the Bible it talks about the fallen angels interbreeding with the daughters of men, this is how these bloodlines were formed. And they've been expanding their power all the way through the ages by centralizing power more and more and more, to the point now where, because of computerization and all this technology they've got, they can make a play for global control. And it's a massive story. The rabbit hole's so deep. But once you start to read the codes, oh my God, does the world look different?
More people are able to see this today, Dave. We're going to talk a little bit about that in the second hour of the broadcast. But if you're not one of them, literally by blood, and we're seeing, here we have cousin Barry Obama, cousins with Dick Cheney. They literally joke about this during the election, and I just now call them all cousin.
Right.
If you're not one of the family, so to speak, and keep in mind that that's another term for the mafia, you have to go through this variety, this myriad of complex initiations. You don't pass, you don't enter, and that's how they keep everything in check.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the way the Freemasons are set up, or any other secret society, and you've got the way they structure themselves. The massive majority of Freemasons in the world never get higher than the bottom three levels of degree, the so-called blue degrees. And, of course, to get to the next level, you have to be invited to that level by the people there. And if you're not acceptable, then you don't get to the next level. And what they do also within organizations like the Freemasons, because you've only got to talk to Freemasons who've broken out of it, is as you go up the different levels, they give you a different version of, quote, the truth. And they say, oh, no, we're telling you the real truth now. We just don't tell the lower ones because we don't want it to get out and all that stuff. And then you go to the next level and they tell you another truth and another truth. And they keep twisting it. And so you can get to the top of the Freemasons and still not understand exactly what it's all about, because the structure they've got is you've got the secret societies like the Freemasons and the Knights Templar and all these people, although Knights Templar are more elite. But what they have above all those pyramids, if you like, is the Illuminati degrees, which no one ever talks about, said not to exist. They exist. And these secret societies that we know about, we just know their names, they're feeding really chosen people and the upper levels, bloodline only, into this upper level of Illuminati degrees, and that's where the real action is. I mean, that level plays out
David,
through the secret societies.
I want to
below,
differentiate.
Like but the real deal is in this Illuminati level. That
I want to bring this down though to something that all of my listeners can understand, and that is that. We're not just talking about Freemasonry, the Illuminati. I mean, these initiations happen when you're little kids in school and they tell you how to answer the questions correctly, or when you're climbing the corporate ladder, or if you're a musician in the music world, you don't get the record label unless you say the right things and you talk about bling and biatches and this kind of thing. I mean, you are constantly being initiated into this cycle in every form of your life. And, David, the second you stop responding to these initiations is when you end up like Jack Blood, basically,
Well, it's not a bad way to end up, Jack, though, is it, really?
No, I'm very proud of it, but it makes it hard,
They're sifting people out, but at the deeper level, they're sifting people out as if you like gophers and agents and all the rest of it who serve the system. A lot of them serve the system like people in music that haven't a clue they're serving the system. A good number of them do mind. But at the core level, these people are brought up within the families from birth, and they are not only initiated into the knowledge, they are programmed from the earliest ages to see the world in a certain way and to see basically the rest of humanity like cattle, and to not have any empathy with humanity as a whole, because in the same way that most people don't have empathy with cattle. So they're programmed, they are given the knowledge, and then the baton's handed for the next generation. And, these people are very, very sick and very, very programmed, but they have control of the institutions of power at the moment. What they don't control is the numbers. Humanity as a whole outnumber the people in full knowledge of what they're doing by colossal, enormous amounts, and that's one of the reasons why they want to dramatically reduce the global population.
Well, it's also one of the reasons why this particular administration here in the United States and their agents around the world are trying to turn us all against each other. One of the segments of this, and we see these, I call them the Obama Kool-Aid drinkers. I think I might have sent you my article, The Kool-Aid is Wearing Off, Watch Out for the Crash.
Right.
But you talked about this in one of your earlier books. I believe it was And the Truth Shall Set You Free. Folks, please go out. If you can still get this book, get it, because it is such a mind expander. But you label these people that we see now around, these environmentalists, these crazies behind Obama that just slavishly support him, as robot radicals. And I'd like you to explain a little bit more of that, who these people are and how they get this way. If we run into a break, David, we can pick it up on the other side. But go ahead.
Well, the robot radicals, one way that I use that term is in all the people who, particularly on what we call the left in politics, who are claiming to be challenging the system and the unfairness of the system. And what they are doing is totally underpinning the system because of the way they have been programmed to see the world. Let's take environmentalists and the whole thing with this nonsense about global warming, which of course they now call climate change because temperatures are falling. Yeah. It won't be global warming again until the sun cycle starts to warm up. But what they have is this idea that the planet's in danger and all the rest of it. And instead of dispassionately looking at the evidence in all these areas, looking at the evidence involved with global warming, which evidence can demolish it, that is underpinning their worldview, which is, it's a threat to the planet. So they don't want to actually know that it's a scam because it suits them for it to be true. It's like when you talk, it's staggering. You talk to these people and you talk to these people of the left, and they will say, George Bush is a total liar. Tony Blair, be liar. Tony Blair, liar. And then you'll say, well, what about 9/11? Because what they're actually saying, because these people are not saying 9/11 was a scam, they're accepting the official version of events. So in their kind of fevered minds, what they're saying is Bush and Blair Blair, and etc., lie about everything except the official version of 9/11, where they told the truth. And why? Because they have a worldview of good guys on the left, bad guys on the right. And if you start to look at 9/11 in its true state, which is it was a manipulated problem.
Hold on, David. David Icke, your truth serum here on our radio broadcast. David, we'll come back with you for another short segment right after this. Stay tuned, folks. Deadline Live, AmericanFreedomRadio.com. Forces. They will stop degrading us. They will not control us. We will be victorious. Thank you for joining us, folks. David Icke with us. DavidIcke.com is his website, and he will be performing this great lecture. I had the privilege to go see one once a couple of years ago in North or South Carolina. One of the Carolinas. It was 8 hours long. It just blew my mind. Food for the soul, David. I'm really looking forward to being out there with you in Phoenix, Arizona this Saturday for the all-day event at the Orpheum Theater. I think tickets are still available. DavidIcke.com, or you can go right to the Orpheum and Ticketmaster and get those. Don't miss it, folks. This could really change your life. David, you just heard that song there by your friends Muse in England, Uprising. What a great song.
Oh, it's perfect. Those guys, especially the guy that wrote it, they're very, very awake, and they can see what's going on. In fact, I open my events with that, funnily enough, because it's so perfect for the moment. I mean, it's like it's just been delivered with a synchronicity that's perfect, the words and everything, and the message, because we've got to start realizing that we have the power and not the control system. The control system appears to have the power because we've, as a human race, have been given our power to it all our lives and for generations before. That needs to change. And when it changes, the house of cards comes down. Why? Because we're holding it up. You know, and we were talking before about robot radicals. Another couple of examples I just want to mention is the hate laws. All the robot radicals are supporting hate laws when they're not there to protect gays or Jewish people from, attacks or discrimination. They're there to shut people up. They're there to stop legitimate investigation of people like the Rothschilds. And then the robot radicals, when you start challenging Zionism, they call you an anti-Semite, when Zionism is nothing to do with what's beneficial for Jewish people. In fact, it's mercilessly exploited them and hung them out to dry so many times. The Zionism, in its play-out kind of expression, is just a political system, a political belief, which many Jewish people vehemently oppose, by the way. And in its core, which is what it really is, it's a secret society. It was created from the start by the House of Rothschild, who were right at the center of this web of control. And it's controlled by them to this day. Israel is not the homeland of Jewish people. It's the land of the Rothschilds. They own the place. They bought, they built and paid for the Knesset, the parliament. They built and paid for the Supreme Court building, which is awash with Illuminati symbols. And as some people from the Rothschild family here and there who've broken ranks have said, they control Israel. It's their fiefdom, and they're using Jewish people mercilessly. But when you point this out, the robot radicals start jumping around and saying, look at my arm, I've got a big heart on it, look how pure I am. No, you're just totally uninformed. And what they're doing is campaigning to build the very society they claim to be against, because they've just completely lost understanding of what the world is and what's happening.
Well, David, I mean, I believe we will be victorious, and we have taken this show in a very positive direction, really since its inception, but most particularly for the last few years. It hasn't really been that good for my career, I'll tell you what, David, because people seem to really want that fear. That's food. That's junk food. To even people that want to listen to alternative media. They don't want to hear, well, people are waking up, and there's a role for you in this, and this is a great time to jump in with both feet and really, push the buttons of this new world order. And I look all around me, and the people that know of the things that you and I know aren't out in the streets. They're not out to, getting good information out to people in a lot of ways. They're continuing to recycle the psyops, many of them coming right from the government. I'll tell you one example. Years ago, we said there wouldn't be an attack on Iran, and people got very mad at us because I just read, thanks to people like you, I learned how to kind of read the world events, and I knew, I'm not going to perpetuate this war psyop and this fear psyop. How do we get people out of that?
Well, I talk about this at great length in the talk in Phoenix, especially in the last couple of hours, because it's absolutely vital. I still find that those that just hold on completely to what I call the 5 cents level of this conspiracy, which is banking scams and engineered wars and 9/11s and stuff. We need to know about that. I'm not, and I go into that big time, but it's almost like it's not dawned on them that it's real in a funny kind of way. It's like they're still a spectator. It's still like, something that's an added little interest to their life.
Hey, Dave, stop there. We'll come back, and we'll have one short segment and then a nice long segment, and then we'll take a few calls. David Icke is with us, davidicke.com. Please check him out. He'll be with us back in the second hour here in just a couple of minutes. Deadline Live, American Freedom Radio. I'm Jack Blood, your narrator, your radio gun. Please stay with us. Second hour coming your way this 12th day of October 2009, as we call it Columbia Day, Semiramis Day. Thank you for joining us on the program, folks. I'm Jack Blood. This is Deadline Live. Our website is deadlinelive.info, deadlinelive.info, folks. Go check it out. Daily news and contributions. A lot of stuff you're not going to get anywhere else. Also, Deadline Live TV, 100% free, like everything we do. AmericanFreedomRadio.com for all of our archives. David is with us today. We got a short segment here, and then we'll have a nice long segment so we can really settle in and ask him about things like, why is Obama bombing the moon? Oh, that's right, his name is Bomb. He's just bombing everything. The moon is surrendered, folks. With us on the program to help de-illusion you, to help deprogram you, to help unlearn you is the one and only David Icke. David, thanks again for joining us. We got a couple of minutes on this segment. I'd like to just finish up on how do we stop the cycle of fear programming?
Well, it could be a long answer, but I'll keep it as short as I can. We've got to become conscious because most people are not conscious. We get caught in what I call mind-body, the 5 senses. And if you get caught in there, particularly in the reptilian brain, the R complex as they call it, which is constantly scanning the environment for danger, then you get caught in that fear cycle. Because if you get locked into the reptilian brain reaction system, and the vast, enormous numbers of people are locked in that, then everything is a potential danger. It sees everything as a danger, and you're constantly kind of having this fear emotion running through your system, running through your body. Once you start to become conscious and pull back out of that low level of awareness, which the reptilian brain kind of represents, then you override that, and you don't see danger everywhere. You don't see fear everywhere, and you realize that we are infinite consciousness having an experience. When you're in, the mind-body state, you think you are your experience. I'm not David Icke, born in Leicester in 1952. I'm infinite consciousness having an experience as David Icke, born in Leicester in 1952. And when you observe yourself and the world from that point of view, all these fear systems start to dissolve because you're above them. You're not in them anymore.
And that's freedom, isn't it, David? I mean, that's what we should have for freedom. Get all of this fear-mongering and is martial law coming tomorrow? If it comes, it comes. Do everything you can today to make sure that doesn't happen and make sure you're prepared for the worst, obviously. We can talk to the people in Katrina in New Orleans about that. David Icke will come back. We'll have a nice long segment. You stay with us, folks. We'll open up the phone lines in about a half hour. Well, thanks for joining us, folks. A real pleasure to have David Icke back with us. First time we had David on, probably 2002. And I'm not sure exactly where I would have ended up if I hadn't run into David. Just on a huge body of work over the years. and is finally getting vindication. David Icke, Was He Right, was a documentary that came out about a year ago showing that all the things he talked about 10 years ago are all coming true. Vindication. His latest book is The David Icke Guide to Global Conspiracy. The latest DVD, David Icke, Beyond the Cutting Edge, and he will be performing here in the United States, maybe for the last time in a long time, in Phoenix, Arizona at the Orpheum Theater this Saturday. Starts at about 10 o'clock in the morning and then just goes all day, and I am going to that. I hope to see everybody there. David, again, just great to have you with us today. There's never enough time because I just want to let you talk for about a half hour every time I ask a question, but we're stuck into this radio format.
I know.
We got to just really slam this stuff out for people, and hopefully if one person out there wakes up and joins us, then we've done our job.
Right.
I got an interesting clip I want to play for you. It takes about a minute, and it's on the issue of vaccinations. I had the opportunity to interview Oliver North. I have not played this clip in 6 years, David, and I have it for you today. This is his response to, how they deal with the troops in the Middle East who don't want to take their anthrax vaccine. Here it is.
Front line. So
no doubt about it.
Did you yourself take an anthrax vaccine?
Of course I did. Absolutely. In fact, there's a very humorous scene in the book right there. As we're getting ready to go, where all the reporters who were being embedded were brought into this big briefing, and an Army medical officer, a colonel, who's giving the briefing, is explaining to him why the advantages of the shot, and he's giving them the whole medical history of the inoculations, both for that and smallpox. And none of the reporters. He then made the terrible mistake of saying to this room full of reporters, "Are there any questions?" Well, that's like asking sheep if they want to eat, and putting them in a field of grass. And so they fired at the guy for about a half an hour about Gulf War syndrome and people dying from the thing, and said, "Look, you don't have to take it. If you're going to take it, you have to sign this release, which is a release of liability, and you have to pay $109. These guys were all bad-mouthing it. He said, "Look, if you're not going to get it, just go on, proceed through those doors in the back of the auditorium." We were over at the Hilton Hotel in Kuwait City, and go on outside and draw your chemical weapons, protective equipment, the suit and the gas mask and the atropine injectors and all that. He said, "But on the way out, you may want to just look at these pictures." And he puts up on the screen as a PowerPoint. They pop up in the screen, they fade out, and pop up. The death throes of various people dying from anthrax and smallpox. You would not be surprised at the sudden hush that came over the room and the very quiet, "Oh, my God," as people are looking at this. And then, of course, everybody went and grabbed the forms and got their shots.
Right. Well, that obviously...
There you go, David. I mean, that's exactly what they need now, isn't it? To show people dying on TV, these horrible deaths from the swine flu or something, and then they'll all go running to take their shots. I thought that was very revealing, and I wanted to share that with you. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, that's a real encapsulation of the whole way the system works. And, thanks to people who've put this information out over the years, and particularly the fantastic amount of work that's gone into getting this information about the so-called swine flu vaccination out through the Internet, it's made a tremendous difference. We're getting polls in Britain now where 50% of doctors are saying they're not going to have it. And 10 years ago, even 5, this would have been a cakewalk for them, but it's not, because people are starting to get informed, and it's one of the great, kind of supporting evidence that people are beginning to wake up and see the world in a different way. Now, these guys know that. They know they're not going to get the numbers as they would normally do on the story that they've played out so far. For instance, I had an email the other day from a friend of mine in India who was kind of panicking because his mother had got swine flu. Should she take Tamiflu? Should I let her do that? And I said, well, it's bloody useless, mate. Never mind what it does to you. It's useless. Doesn't work. I said, our immune system will sort it out. And 3 days later, I got another email saying, oh, she's up and fine, and she hadn't taken anything, and she'd been diagnosed with the swine flu. So people look at this and they say, hold on a second, I'm back at work in 3 days. What do I need a vaccine for? And then, of course, there's all the information that's coming out about what's in the vaccine and all the rest of it. So they're going to have to up the ante, and they're going to have to try a heck of a lot harder, and they will. Maybe increasing the strength of the virus, whatever, because they have a big challenge to meet here. Yeah. And the way that Oliver North was describing describing, the way they manipulated the military there, that's absolutely what we're going to face. But we have to keep the backbone stiff and not succumb to all this manipulated garbage.
Well, we found
what
out
people
later,
are doing
David,
now in refusing it in large numbers. We need to hold that line.
We found out
Absolutely
later
we do,
in a
because
book
the
called
consequences are enormous if we don't.
We found out later in a book called Vaccine A by Gary Matsumoto, who is not easy to find anymore. He's a mainstream reporter, that those anthrax vaccines, how they worked, how you needed the boosters, how most of the guys never were able to get their boosters, and how they were full of squalene and that was killing people. That interview of Oliver North, which I'll be uploading this week for the first time, is just full of things like that. In fact, I have another clip where he explains why it was cool to have Red Dragon and 666 painted on the tanks as they invaded Iraq, and you would be, I'm sure, not shocked to hear his answer there as he again just justifies all of this stuff. But, I think barring, and this is why I got out and I predicted that they're not going to be able to force us to take these vaccines because the first responders will refuse, that most people will refuse, that unless and barring, these watching people die, these horrible deaths on our 800 channels of programming on our TV sets, that people aren't going to go for it. This seems like a colossal fail, David, that they failed in this program.
Well, they certainly failed so far, and this is a very important, not just subject, but a very vital time. We've been going along exposing this conspiracy, and the conspiracy has been going along unfolding. And the two have not really engaged between public and people exposing this and the unfolding conspiracy. This swine flu vaccination program is a point where the two are engaging, because we now have the opportunity, and it's being taken clearly at the moment by large numbers of people, to draw a line in the sand and say here and no further, because we're going to be have everything thrown at us in the next few years, very few years. They want this vaccination program because they want to attack the human immune system, because they want to control the population. I absolutely have no doubt there's nanotechnology, microchips in there. In fact, some evidence is already coming out about that from various sources. And I was told by a CIA scientist in 1997 in California that in the secret bases, he said at that time, in the secret projects, there were microchips so small that they could be inserted in a vaccination program in a hypodermic needle, and that's what was planned. And, of course, what we now call, what he was talking about, it's in the public arena, we call it nanotechnology. So we are going to have that thrown at us, and we're starting to meet that, but they also want a massive economic crash, because the crash in September 2008 was stage one. Stage two was get the governments to hose money, credit at the problem and make it disappear. Not the problem disappear, mind, make the money disappear, which is what's happened. And the idea of stage two is to empty the pockets, empty the barrels of the governments in terms of reacting to economic crisis, and all the kind of credit lines are over. And then they plan to stage three, which is to crash it massively. And at that point, there's no government response possible, even a useless one like we've just seen. And so the banking system, controlled by the Rothschilds, is then going to come forward and say, oh, we must do this. We must be allowed to do this if we're going to sort this out.
That
will be a world central bank, etc., and all the stuff that they want. Yeah. They also want a third world war involving China and Europe and North America and Russia and all the rest of it, because they want to create a massive global problem which they can offer the solution to, which is world government and a world army controlled by the world government, so bring an end to wars between countries, problem, reaction, solution. So all these are in the pipeline. So we're now being challenged as consciousness, having an experience, to meet this challenge. And at the moment, anyway, it's extremely encouraging with what's happening with the swine flu. But they're going to try to up the ante with that. We still have to hold this line. No, no, no. And like I keep saying, and it's so true, we have the numbers. And if we do things in numbers, the control system is impotent. It can't cope with the numbers. That's why it wants to divide and rule us, as you quite rightly said, and it does it in all these different manufactured fault lines that divide us, like religion and race and income bracket. It has to keep us in a divided state. If we come together and unite behind what affects us all and all our children, all our grandchildren, basic human freedom, then this control system can't cope with those numbers. And the challenge is there. We must meet it.
Well, I think it's already happening, David, as you, I think, accurately mentioned. And, you know, I have to look, when you say there's going to be a big crash, there's going to be World War III, I have no doubt they're going to go in heavily to Pakistan and into Africa. That we can all see. In fact, that today, a big bomb killed 41 people. We had terrorists running all around here last month. We caught them all, of course, in a perfect capturing mode, just as they were about to push the button and blow up buildings. We got every single one of them in all the different states. It is George Bush recycled here, but I just wonder if they're going too far, and if trying these things, as we saw the vaccination thing fail, we saw health care fail, that is, again, locking us all into this freedom-stealing global system that decides life and death for all Americans. All this cap and trade is probably going to fail, at least in the Senate, and it's going to be real tough for these guys to get this stuff through. I just wonder if trying to pull any more of this is going to completely backfire on them, and maybe if that's the case, we should say, as George Bush said once, bring it on.
Yeah, well, that is a very, very good point. And if I just say one thing quickly, if the technical people could just turn you up a bit, because you've gone a bit low on me, but okay. Yeah, it's a major point, and there's a reason for this. It's a long story. I'll talk about it in Phoenix, but they have a time scale to get this in because of something that's coming. And so that time scale is being squeezed all the time. As a result, they have got to play many cards very, very quickly. And that is having the effect, and will even more have the effect, that you quite rightly say, of it becoming more and more obvious. And there is this idea, and I understand it, that here we have these arrogant, controlling people who are completely in control of things. They are panicking to get this control system in, not least the microchips, where they can externally access our mental, emotional, and physical processes, because they have a time scale. And if they don't meet the time scale, they're not going to meet the time scale, but they're going to make life very unpleasant for a while, few years. Then this control system's coming down. But what we need to do is slow it down its progress, because then by the time it comes down, and it will not be as extreme as it would be if we do nothing. And again, you know, getting access to almost everyone on the planet via the vaccine with microchips and attacking the immune system, this is a crucial, massive stone in the wall that is so important. If this fails, as it is at the moment going to fail, then the whole massive spanner has been thrown in the whole works of this, because they need to get access to our mental and emotional processes, so that they and undermine us mentally, emotionally, and physically through the poisons in this stuff, so that they can go to the next stage of control. If they don't get that, they won't get that. And so this is such an important time, and there's nothing in people's lives that is more important than focusing on this, because everything in people's lives comes from it.
Yeah, I mean, there's other ways to do this. I think that they kind of get off on forcing us to do it when they can simply just put things in the water, though we're all starting to figure out how to filter our water, how to eat good food. I mean, it's all coming apart, and that is such a great thing, David. I mean, for you and me, we've been at this for decades. It just feels so good that we're finally getting to the place where even, you know, groupthink Stepford Republicans are standing up for themselves, and some of these robot radicals are waking up, and our audience is out really doing some great work, and all the people that have come to you, including many celebrities. We just heard Muse Robbie Williams is a big fan of yours. I mean, we just hear we're going to meet some out in Phoenix. You know, I mean, it just seems like it's over. Game over.
Well, you know, I spoke in Amsterdam in Europe about 3 weeks ago, in Washington State last week, in Santa Fe, New Mexico yesterday, and the energy is just fantastic. And wherever you go, and it's all walks of life. You know, I was speaking to a gentleman who came to the Santa Fe event yesterday, and 3 months ago he said he was solid gold asleep. He was totally in the system. And 3 months later, he's flying from Texas, from Austin, I think it was, yeah, to Santa Fe, to an event that is not just talking about a conspiracy, it's like banking scams. It's going really, really deep in some really challenging areas, like, you know, what is reality and other levels of control outside of the reality that we're experiencing and all that stuff. So this sort of awakening is happening so fast, and people are moving enormous distances in their perception very quickly. And it just is a great time to be in this reality as this happens. It's a privilege to be part of it. But like when you corner a rat, it just, you know, thrashes out at you. And so in the process of this system going down, it's going to thrash out, and it's going to try to play every card it can.
I can just crush it under my Chuck Taylor with that rat. It doesn't scare me. Just a little rat. I don't care if there's 100 of them. Mason. David Icke with us. We'll come back. We'll take your calls. 512-879-3805. Stay with us, folks. Headline Live, AmericanFreedomRadio.com.
React automatic and we burst and squeeze and make 9/11 each emergency. Urgency, amber to red like the turning leaves. Oh, please let the see.
Jerry Driscoll.
Yeah, and the guy has, there was a lot of very unusual symbolism in this war. He had a Grateful Dead, the band, the Grateful Dead logo kind of flashing up.
He's got every DVD they ever made, too, man. I'll tell you that.
And, you know, some of the tanks were driving around there with 666 written on them, and you got this Red Dragon unit. Again, what's behind all this symbolism, and who authorizes something like 666 written on a tank?
Well, obviously every tank commander can put pretty much anything he wants in the barrel of his tank, and the logo that's on the side of those CH-46 helicopters, which incidentally are older than anybody except Jerry Driscoll in that squadron. He says it on the DVD. Yeah. The squadron commander does. I mean, by the way, the Red Dragon, by the way, is Smough from the trilogy. That's now you know, of course,
named after the serial killer in the book Red Dragon.
Right.
Wow, that's interesting. Well, I mean, it just seems to me. I know that we have a lot of Christian listeners, and when they saw, you know, some of this satanic symbolism as our boys are going to battle, I know it was quite disturbing for them.
Well, you know, the message that kid was trying to send, I think, with the 666 is, you know, if you think things were bad beforehand, I'm now here to tell you with this 120 millimeter round that you better not pick on us. These guys, by the way, the faith of these youngsters is extraordinary. As I write in the front end of the book describing the average 19-and-a-half-year-old, he may be able to take profanity to the level of a new art form.
Right.
But he's also more than likely got a Bible in his pack, and he reads from it regularly.
Well, I mean, there's a difference between being one of the boys and using profanity in a war. I mean, obviously they have that right. The thing that I think, you know, you make the perception that you're seeing the 666, for example, again, and you know, hey, you better watch out because I got, you know, all this ammunition and I'm going to kill you. But I think what it also does is plays into this whole myth that, you know, we're the infidels, we're the crusaders, we are of Satan. This whole religious ideological battle going on between both Muslims and Christians today. I mean, I'm not sure if that's exactly the message we want to send.
Jack, let me just tell you something. I just got back here a few weeks ago for the holidays. Second trip over there, in this case with the 4th Infantry. And as a young, right after a bombing, and which thankfully they know no.
Feels like a race. You're miles off the pace, and I still lean for the line, follow the tide.
what you just heard, that is more of that All Over North interview that we're going to be uploading here this week. And this is a great song. Feels Like a Race by Gareth Icke. That is David's son, who is a very popular musician around the world and does some great music. You can get him up on YouTube or davidicke.com. Gareth Icke, his daddy, is with us on the program today. David Icke, you must be really proud of Gareth. We've been playing his music for years.
Yeah, it makes me feel a bit homesick, actually, just hearing that. Yeah, he's a great guy, great singer-songwriter, and a really lovely chap, which is a kind of stark contrast to the guy who went before, who is barely one-dimensional. I mean, you know, when you're dealing with the mentality of Oliver North, I mean, you know, if he had a brain cell, it would die of loneliness, mate.
Yeah.
And
how'd you like him justifying all that? How'd you like him justifying all that evil that was sent into battle? I mean, was I making my point there? This is exactly what we want to be sending in.
The point is, I mean, I was talking about this earlier. Whenever I follow these bloodline families and their agents and offshoots long enough, far enough, I always hit Satanism. I always hit literally human sacrifice, ritual, blood drinking, and all the rest of it. I mean, this guy Polanski, Roman Polanski, in the news at the moment, he's a practicing Satanist. He was throughout his filmmaking career, and so they're going into battle as, you know, Christian America on the face of it. But the reason that all these symbols turn up and all these things that they do is because it's satanic in the background. That's what it's for. And you know, the troops need to understand this, because so many people in uniform, in law enforcement, and in you know, the army, the military, they have this misunderstanding that they're serving their country. They're serving, you know, what's good for America. What they are serving every day is a system, a control system, which is designed to control and enslave their children and their grandchildren. And I say to these people, you don't have any power. The uniform has power. You're just animating it, because the uniform is an extension of the state. Take your uniform off. Where's your power? It's gone. It's these uniform professions and what I call the dark suit administrating professions that are in the middle size of the pyramid and administer what is dictated at the top into law and into legislation. They have to start looking at this, and they have to start breaking ranks, because they are going to have a conversation pretty soon, otherwise, with their children and grandchildren, explaining why they were playing their part in creating a system that's enslaving them. You know, wake up, suits, wake up, uniforms, because this is about you as well.
Yeah, this is what an organization like Oath Keepers is all about, and they're just doing a fabulous job as well. I just went and voted for my new Continental Congress here over the weekend. Dave,
right.
You think people are waking up? Hey, let's go to the calls, but before I do that, I want to go to some of the emails, reminding you that the phone number to call in is 512-879-3805. We're live today, this Monday, Columbia Day, October 12th. 2009 with David Icke today, davidicke.com, and he'll be appearing in Phoenix, Arizona, my former hometown, where I founded a 50,000-watt radio station that's still on the air. David, it'll be a homecoming for me, and I get to see you and Maria Heller, who's hosting your event. I'm just so excited to come out there. I'm so excited I spent $500 in traveling fees just to get there.
Well, I tell you, if you saw me a few years ago, mate, my goodness me, has it moved on. Massively.
512-879-3805. I'll take your calls here. 512-879-3805. We're live with David Icke. You can ask him anything. You're running out of time, so get in. But first, let's start with my emails, because I have a bunch of people emailing me, jackblood@hotmail.com. They want to ask you questions as well. The first question, which I've gotten repeatedly, knowing that we were going to have you on, is what was behind the bombing of the moon thing? Your take on that?
Well, I've got. I don't want to answer that now. I'll tell you for why. I have, in the last few months, I'm writing a new book at the moment. I'm really 3/4 or so into it, and I have got extraordinary revelations. I guess I'm in such a purple patch, a streak of information coming my way. And the reason I want to hold on to it for a while is there's 2 or 3 dots I want to connect so I can bring it out as one unit. And when I do, what that question is will take on a whole new light.
Have you seen Arsenal of Hypocrisy by Bruce Gagnon, who's been on our show? It talks about the space wars and how the countries are going to be fighting in space, and obviously you take this to a whole, no pun intended, another dimension. But it really, and of course we know there are really valuable minerals on the moon, much like there is in Africa. It seems like the countries are warring against each other to get at those, and maybe this is the first salvo. I mean, am I on the right track, or is it something completely deeper than that?
Well, it's massive, and will explain so much. And as soon as I've connected the 2 or 3 dots I need to, I'll bring it out as one unit. It really will take this whole story on in a massive leap.
512-879-3805, live with David Icke today. Another email question, Lisbon Treaty. We saw what happened in Ireland. I think that surprised some of us who weren't anticipating kind of how that was going to turn out. It was the final referendum on the Lisbon Treaty. But the last holdout is the president of Czechoslovakia, who's not for cap and trade, who doesn't believe in global warming, who's been very outspoken. They're talking about getting rid of him in order to ratify this big EU expanding treaty. Your take on that?
Oh yeah, they are now seeking. It's been in the media to, as they say, fast track the signing by Czechoslovakia. What we've seen in Europe is what, of course, is unfolding just below the surface now. In fact, breaking the surface, if you know what you're looking for, in North America, because they want a North American version of the European Union. And, it's you've only got to look at the quotes from people that have come to light who founded the European Union to see that actually it was planned to be what it is now right from the start. It's that technique that I call the totalitarian tiptoe, where you know where you're going, which is the centralized control of Europe with a bureaucratic leadership, not even an elected one. But you know after the Second World War that if you announced that's what you were going to do after people had lost millions of lives stopping that very centralization of control of Europe, then people would not have had it. So you start with a free trade zone like NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement, and then you get more and more centralization of power. I've got a quote here from Jean Monnet, founding father of the European Union and a Rothschild frontman, by the way. He wrote a letter to a friend in 1952, the year I was born, and he said this: Europe's nations should be guided towards the superstate without their people understanding what is happening. This can be accomplished by successive steps, each disguised as having an economic purpose, but will eventually and irreversibly lead to federation. And that's what's happening in North America. And we have the kind of staggeringly depressing prospect, at the moment anyway, of having Tony Blair, a war criminal, who could lie for the world, being the first president of Europe, which is what this Lisbon Treaty now brings in. A president of Europe, a European foreign minister to represent the whole of Europe in foreign affairs. They want a European army, and as a result of this, they're going to fuse the databases they have on people in every country into a massive European database, which they then plan to exchange with North America to create a global database. So much comes out of this Lisbon Treaty because the people that are voting for it haven't even read it. They don't read it. They just vote on it, most of them. And there's some real big stuff in there which they can now play out. And people are going to be saying, even people who voted for it, what's happening? I didn't vote for that. And they go, yes, there we go. Clause 7, Part 4, there it is. And, of course, that's how they do it in America and everywhere. These people don't know what they're voting for.
David, we're getting so many emails. They're such good questions. I'm going to go to the calls here. We're almost out of time, 512-879-3805. But these guys were first. They were in here for an hour, so I've got to ask these questions. Before I do, I want to remind my listeners, the EEC, our NAFTA, has celebrated their 50th anniversary here a year or so ago. They didn't tell anyone that they were the European Union until 1987. I just want to remind my listeners that, this stuff kind of creeps up on you. Another email question, David, easy one. Nobel Peace Prize for Cousin Barry.
Well, you look at the Nobel situation. I mean, to sum it up, I mean, Alfred Nobel made his fortune out of selling armaments and inventing dynamite. People like Henry Kissinger, who's wanted for war crimes in a number of countries, won it. Al Gore won it right at the time they were really trying to sell global warming for telling lies. And now they want to sell Obama, because Obama's a real big area of this. He's been brought through to be the used car salesman, to sell this system and to sell this control system as freedom and coming together and the world uniting as one, and all this Orwellian language that they use. What we've seen in America and what we're seeing unfolding is a problem-reaction-solution, presidential style. They brought Bush in to front up, that's all he did, front up the creation of a serious problems, extending America's military abroad in so many ways, and at the end of his presidency, the economic crash. And now that's the problem. Then you have the reaction from the people. Fear, outrage, we don't like the way the country's going. What can we do? And then big smiling, extended smile, read the teleprompter, Obama comes forward to sell the solutions to the problems. And these will be the control system coming in and what have you. And the key thing about Obama for people to realize is that there are two Rothschild agents in the White House standing at each ear. There's Rahm Emanuel, whose father was in Irgun, the terrorist organization that helped to bomb Israel into existence. And you have...
We'll pick up, David, when we come back for a final short segment. We'll wrap up the show with David Icke right after this. AmericanFreedomRadio.com. I'm Jack Blood. This is Deadline Live.
And now back to Deadline Live with Jack Blood.
It's fair to say that class, they would have woken up if they lived this long. If the cancer didn't get them. Well, that's weird. All the punk rock bands out there that oppose the establishment all died of cancer. They no longer are around anymore to have an opinion. David Icke is with us on the program today. I know. That's what everybody's telling me. Loads of emails, and our phone system just crashed, but maybe that's a good thing. David, I can't thank you enough for all this time. I know you're really pressed for time, so 90 minutes with us today is huge. I really appreciate it. Let's go back to the emails, and we got a couple of more minutes. Let's continue asking the question. Before we do, just finish up real quick. Axelrod and the man.
Yeah. That's what I was just going to say before the break. I couldn't hear the break coming in. You're a bit low, but I can hear okay. David Axelrod's got the other ear, and he's another Rothschild agent. And Axelrod, of course, was the one who oversaw the two campaigns against Hillary Clinton and McCain. And he's the one that oversees the words on the teleprompter that the eyes of Obama are welded to, and he gets in real trouble when it stops working. So what you're looking at is two Rothschild agents actually having both the ear of Obama. And this is very important when you look at the fact that the Rockefeller family in America are subordinate to the Rothschilds in the hierarchy. The Bush family obviously are. And this is how you get American governments of whatever persuasion giving absolutely fantastic amounts of American taxpayers' money every year to Israel, because one hand controlled by the Rothschilds hands it to the other hand owned by the Rothschilds, which is Israel, which is a Rothschild fiefdom. Once you understand this, these bizarre decisions that they make in terms of aid, etc., start to make perfect sense.
Hey, listen, I watched a special. They sent Obama out for hamburgers, and they got really annoyed when he was trying to take their order, and then they just sent him out to get the Olympics. Okay, whatever they can do to get rid of this guy and get him out of the room, because he doesn't know, David. I don't think he really knows what's going on here. Kind of like George Bush. All right, back to the email questions. Our phones crashed, which must mean, David, we're doing a good job. I got two final questions for you. Net neutrality, I've come out against this. I think that this is legislating the Internet. We've got the E-Patriot Act, which is allegedly already written, just waiting for the next big attack. It comes right off this new edition of 24, the torturer show on Fox network, of all places. But net neutrality, man. I mean, do we need to start legislating the Internet? I mean, is the government going to save us from the telecom companies?
Now, what they're doing, I mean, I talked about this, must be 15 years ago. The Internet has very good things for the control system in the sense that it's easy to follow people's movements on the Internet. It's very easy to track their emails and read them and all the rest of it. But it has a big drawback. And I think myself that they did not anticipate the scale of the drawback, which is the enormous amount of information circulating on the Internet that they certainly do not want in circulation. And what they're going to try to do now, I said this 15 years ago, they're going to try to eliminate the bad part of the Internet from their point of view and keep the good part. But the genie's out of the bottle, and it's not going back. But we do have to make sure that we very strongly resist any attempt to censor the Internet and to cut it back. Because, you see, the thing is, very, very quickly, I know we're running out of time, China, Jack, is the blueprint for what they want the world to be like. Look at China. That's the blueprint. It's like the laboratory. And what we see in China, of course, are great chunks of the Internet being firewalled off so that people can't see them. And you just look at Chinese society today, that's what they want for the world. And they ain't going to get it.
I couldn't agree more. And it's great that you can have a terrorist attack on the Internet, and the only one that can prove it are the people that are telling you there was a terrorist attack. Exactly. It's the perfect Building 7 right there. So many questions coming through on email. I'm going to have to leave it at this. And then, again, denote, you will be in Phoenix, Arizona, my former hometown, here this weekend on Saturday at the Orpheum Theater. Tickets might still be available, or you can go out and get them scalped. You do not want to miss this 8-hour presentation. And if you think it's all, reptiles and shape-shifting, well, maybe you'll get some of that too, but probably not. It's all symbolism. It's all politics. It's all, getting yourself to free your mind. And really the bottom line here, love is the only infinite truth. Everything else is an illusion. The final question I'll have time for today. Arsenal United used to be a top superstar soccer player until your knees blew out, David. You were a goalie. Arsenal United, sponsored by AIG. Is that where our money went?
Oh, yeah, Manchester United. Yeah, Manchester United it was. They what clubs do in Britain in the so-called Premiership is they have sponsors on the shirt, on the chest, and Manchester United had AIG, and it was like 300. It was a fantastic amount of money, millions and millions and millions a year, and of course, American taxpayers are probably paying for it, almost certainly are. But just to say, in Phoenix, I'll be covering everything. I'll be connecting all the dots, nothing left out.
It's a PowerPoint presentation with visuals, and I want to tell you people, David, I guess I did the comedy role today. You were the straight man, but in your presentation, you're really funny. You tell jokes. It's so moving and so entertaining that the 8 hours go by super, super fast. Going back to sports, billionaires tell these guys what to do. They own them. They trade them. They are their slaves. I mean, whether you're making $1 billion and you live in a penthouse or you're Jack Blood and you're barely surviving, scraping it together and putting out a radio broadcast every day, there's almost no difference, except for, David, I'm free. They can't tell me what to do. I'm free, and nobody owns me. So I hope more Americans come to understand that, and I think they do. That is the beauty of what we do, David Icke. That is the beauty of what we do. We get to see all these people waking up.
It's a privilege. It's a privilege. I wouldn't want to be anyone else doing anything else than me doing this.
That's right. Well, I look forward to seeing you, and I appreciate all your hospitality so far out there in Phoenix, and it's just going to be great to be out there and shake your hand again, give you a big hug, and I'll probably kiss you right on the mouth there.
Okay. I'll see you Saturday, Jack.
Thank you very much.
Cheers,
thank you for joining us on the program today, folks. We have a economic insider on tomorrow's show. I won't blow his cover, but stay tuned for that. We'll get some information we're probably not getting anywhere else. Thank you for listening to the broadcast today. I'm sorry for everybody that called in. Our phone system crashed, but thank you for everybody for emailing those questions. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same channel. Keep listening to AmericanFreedomRadio.com. I'm Jack Blood, your radio gun. Until tomorrow, remember, be bold and mighty forces will come to your aid.